Good morning, everybody. Wonderful, wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for giving up your Saturday, precious Saturdays. I mean, today is a real Saturday of sport, for those of you who love sport. But anyway, we're doing our own kind of sport here, so it's also very important. Thank you, Margaret. Margaret is never one to be short of an effusive compliment. So thank you. Always happy to work together. They do a tremendous job here, as you know. Margaret and Robin really have some extraordinary achievements between them, really, to propel this work forward. So thank you. I'm very happy to have a chance to talk to you and to everybody who's online. So if you all turn around and wave, maybe somebody catches a little. We do have some very, very dedicated people who are, I'm sure, sorry they can't be here in person, but we are including them as best we can. It's not always easy for you to catch everything, but so if we do have some questions or comments from the floor, please wait for the microphone to come to you, and then those online will catch your words as well. So this is a short introduction to the founder's vision. You saw on the video, if you caught something of that, a lot of the international programs, the very high-level programs which are going on through UPF International, and it's really very important and quite impressive, and it's moving forward at a great pace, actually, and it's doing some extraordinary things, as you'll have seen there. Today, rather than being a kind of regular UPF meeting, is slightly different today, because what I'm sharing is, it's not necessary for a person who is meeting and working with UPF to know the things that I'm going to share. It's more for friends and people who know us, who then want to understand a little more deeply the thinking, the thought, the teaching of the founder, Rev Dr Sun Myung Moon, and his wife, who's carrying on. They're just like a totally united couple working together, so she is carrying on that work. Very hands-on, actually. And their thought, they kind of developed, and it underpins so many of the activities and important work that the unification movement generally is doing. So this is a chance to get to know the ideas that kind of underpin things a little bit more. So it's some insights into Father Moon's thinking, religious thinking. What I'm sharing with you, I'm not asking that you have to accept what I'm saying or take them as your beliefs. No, that's not the purpose. We're not, as you know, about changing anybody's beliefs, but about having us work more effectively together. And that's the real purpose. And if you understand these things, I think you will have more feeling in your heart to join in with future programs and activities. That's my hope, anyway. So thank you very much. I'm going to share, first of all, in this little, oh, they've removed the clock, which is a very dangerous thing to do. Oh, I see it. Well, I can't see it, so sorry about that.
21 minutes past 11.
Right, okay, so I have to take a few more minutes than on the schedule to catch up, but it'll all work out. Don't worry, I have absolute faith. We'll have a lovely day together, so not to worry. The first session I'm calling Universal Values as a Foundation for World Peace. Obviously, UPF is all about world peace in very practical ways. So let me share with you some words of Father Moon, words of the founder. This comes from 1985 at an assembly of the world's religions, which he convened in America for people of all religious backgrounds, religious leaders. He said there, religions should not be concerned with God's will for world salvation, or should be concerned with God's will for world salvation more than with the salvation of the individual or the welfare of their own denomination. As far as I know, God is not sectarian. He's not obsessed with minor details of doctrine, We should quickly liberate ourselves from theological conflict, which results from blind attachment to doctrines and rituals, and instead focus on living communication with God. In God's parental heart and his great love, there's no discrimination based on color or nationality. There are no barriers between countries or cultural traditions, between East and West or North and South. Through interreligious dialogue and harmony, we should realize one ideal world of peace. So this indicates, maybe why there's an unashamed kind of openness and focus on religion and all religions in UPF's work. It sees that people in the religious field are very much key players in bringing about a world of peace. They should be at the front line of those efforts, right? According to their respective teachings and doctrines. We know it's not always the way, and sometimes even religion can be a source of problems. But in essence, this is a rich resource for humanity, and we're looking to find and to bring out themes that are in common across these traditions, which are of real value to humanity as we go forward. So religion itself, UPF would say, has a real contribution to make, because true religious practice seeks to restore peace, and it promotes certain things, such as humility in front of God, respect to parents, fidelity in marriage, loyalty and public service. It promotes personal discipline, sacrifice and control of physical desires. This is common to the various traditions. If you have a personal tradition, you might recognize, that in what I'm saying. If you don't have any particular faith, or you don't subscribe to a particular point of view, religious point of view, please understand that these are talking about general kind of principles. So you can think about something which has a good purpose in life, and I'll show you how to apply that later. And in this way, UPF is very open to people of no particular faith, conscientious people. We feel they're very essential for the work that we want to do, to have people of good heart and good nature and good mind and good intention working together. But religion also teaches, in its essence, restraint and patience and forgiveness in relationships. It's things which are very valuable to peacemaking, and also that you should love others as you love yourself. You also have to love yourself as one who's loved by God. And it teaches love of neighbor, and even, love of one's enemy, to see that people who might stand against you are victims themselves of something, and they need to be liberated from those wrong attitudes. I'm going to make a few interreligious quotations, or religious quotations. I could choose from many different traditions, so there's no kind of favoritism here. But I'm going to start with one from the Holy Quran. And it says there, talking about this kind of role of the inner life of religion, prayer restrains one from shameful and unjust deeds, and remembrance of God is the greatest thing in life without doubt. Well, I wasn't brought up as a Muslim, but I like that quotation very much, right? So, and I could happily carry that around with me in my heart and share that with anyone. There's also, in life and peacemaking efforts, there is the human factor. This is so important. For any organization, it's very important. The integrity of the individual is really a key. It's people who make decisions in the end, isn't it? And we have to think, what are they basing that on? What is their kind of source or their particular take on the kind of wisdom of the ages. And their character is shaped by their experiences and their influences. Everybody can't escape this kind of, way in which our characters are formed and our opinions are formed. So we are saying that it's very important to find unity based on values which are as universal as possible. That means you'll find them in all such traditions as we've described and as are just represented here. There are many more traditions, so this is just a representative selection, just 10 of those world traditions. And we can look to values that are common to the world's great religions and great philosophies, and out of that make a very harmonized teaching. Therefore, the great benefit of meeting and working together is that we don't have to require anybody to change their beliefs, as I say. So UPF in this way is working for unity and respecting all paths of faith and encouraging people to unite, centering on these universal values. So what does the unification principle or the teaching of Father Moon, what does this provide? That's an interesting kind of question. I would say it's a new expression of religious truth for our age, and our age has particular challenges, doesn't it, right? So, young people are being educated in quite a different way, and they're very, maybe more capable and more open to all kinds of things than ever before. But religious truth needs to be updated all the time in its expression. Truth is truth and it never changes, right? But still the expression can be different. And this teaching of the unification principle, it opens the way for a harmonized view of religion and science, which is extremely important in our day. Not to feel that these are two great areas of human endeavor which are opposing each other. Rather, it takes, again, a unified view, not surprisingly, right? But it needs the kind of expression of truth to be able to show that and to employ that. It also identifies universal values that are present in major world faiths, as I've indicated, and in the process reveals God as a God of heart. This comes through Reverend Moon's own very deep and profound experiences from childhood onwards with the living God. And it reveals God as a God of heart, and I'll explain that a little bit more later, and identifies clearly the importance of human responsibility, providing understanding for tackling very real problems. Therefore, UPF work is doing many practical projects that are absolutely hands-on peacemaking efforts. And it also combines these aspects of revelation and reason that have been running through human endeavor, sometimes seemingly opposed to each other, but it's a way to unify the good aspects of both of these. As I speak, I do have a little caveat to share with you, right? Because I'm talking very openly. But first, especially in this initial talk here, I'm talking about an original ideal, an original plan. You could say it's God's plan. It's something very, very fundamental. And it doesn't mean that, life is like that for many of us, right? So there's a difference, perhaps, between the ideal and the reality. Are you with me? So I'm very aware of that. I want you to know that I'm aware of that. I'm not just talking with kind of, beautiful ideas, but somewhere in this view of life is the idea that having an ideal is very important because it's something to aim for. It's something to know what should we be doing or what should we be like, not just kind of always going to the lowest common denominator in terms of our exchanges and our relationships. We have to aim for what the ideal could be, what potential is there. So, and also I'm freely referring, as you know already, right, to to God and to religious concepts. But I feel quite free to do that today because I'm explaining Father Moon's view and his understanding. And this is it, right? So, take it as a point of interest if you don't personally agree with that or it's not so important to you. But I hope in some way that it is. And I'm also not implying any judgment at all on people who think or choose to behave differently to the various examples that I'm giving. Are you with me? Yeah. Right? So, we know very diverse opinions in our world today, and we're very conscious of, respecting those differences. Me too. I'm like that, right? But I'm picking on certain things because this is related to the ideal and to Father Moon's teaching and presenting them to you. Somewhere, I think these ideas are getting smothered in the kind of noise of a lot of what else is going on in society. And they need some kind of refocus and some reevaluation and some revisiting. I'm talking mainly about the ideas of marriage and family. So that's what we're going to do today, all right? So the first cause in Father Moon's thinking is God, the creator, but God is a God who has internal character and also an external form, not a form that you can see, but he uses this expression to emphasize that there's some deeper inner part of God and there's a more kind of external presence, which is like a prior energy in the universe, which is always seeking to create and to develop further. So there's, in God the Creator, there's the origin of the internal character of everything, and we would say everything has its own internal, invisible character or nature, and is the origin of the external form of everything. So everything in the material world comes from this same source, and therefore spiritual things are absolutely valuable, physical things are absolutely valuable. Both, the spirit and the physical side of the universe come from the origin. That already is quite a massive historical, philosophical statement, right? Yeah. Because people have taken kind of one or the other, right? You could be a Marxist and say, no, everything is material, and even what we call spirit comes out of material things. It's just a product of the brain. Well, this philosophy and theology is saying, no, that's not true. But neither is this world something kind of inherently evil or false. It's actually a part of, it's like the external body of God almost, right? And behind it is a purposeful heart and mind, which is giving direction and meaning to everything. So also, there's another kind of set of paired characteristics. That is, this God, the Creator, is the origin of the masculine nature of everything, and also the origin of the feminine nature of everything. And that dichotomy, that kind of relationship or paired relationship, complementary aspects of masculinity and femininity go through everything. The plant world, the animal world, the subatomic world. You get positive and negative ions. It's all a kind of paired relationship of something which in essence are two complementary characteristics. And revisiting this is very important nowadays, I think. It's not just talking in terms of biological sex or something, it's to do with character and something deeper than that. And this is where there's a benefit, I think, from the input of Oriental wisdom. Right? So Orient will say, well, to everything that is like convex in shape, there's also a concave. These two go together. So convex and concave. You can't have one without the other. And, you take anything, even like music, right? There are notes. But if there were only notes and no space between the notes, you really wouldn't have music. So that nothingness is tremendously important. So when there's a sound and when there's not a sound, it's the interplay of those two things, isn't it? So this is the kind of thinking which underpins this. And likewise, every human being has a masculine and feminine nature. We both have those. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for men or women to understand each other. Or shall I say, even more difficult. Right? So, these are qualities or characters which run through the whole universe and are present in God. So traditionally, we've always thought of God as male, right? We use he but interestingly, the trend today is a kind of awakening to the fact that God is as much a mother God as a father God, right? This is absolutely significant. And Father Moon's own expression was parent. And in his native Korean, it's useful because there's no such obvious distinction between singular and plural. So parent is something which can imply, the qualities of both mother and father. Anyhow, the nature of God. Well, this is an interesting place to start, isn't it? Did you think I'd be talking about this? This is Father Moon's thinking. It's very fundamental, his understanding of the nature of God. So God has an internal character. This includes such things as intellect, emotion, will, concepts, laws which are operating throughout the universe. They're consistent, they're universal. And there's this external form, which we can call original energy, or energy before it becomes energy that we experience in the universe. It gives rise to that. It's something that gives rise to the external form of everything. But that's not all. As if I could be cheeky enough to build a kind of diagram of God, I'm going to attempt it, right? In the center, meaning, spiritually, meaningfully in the center is something he calls heart. Heart. It's, you have to almost redefine this word because it's very, very profound. But we use this term as a translation of the Korean version. So what is heart? Heart is the impulse to experience joy through giving and receiving love. Wow. Right? So it's something deeper than love itself. Could you imagine anything deeper than love? Where does love come from? There's behind it this impulse to have an object for your love because love needs a relationship, right? It doesn't have a meaning outside of relationship. So there's this impulse to have that. It's an impulse even to create in the first instance. Wow. So profound for a Saturday morning, isn't it? Goodness me. Wow. Anyway, it's the source of meaning and the source of motivation for creating. This is why. And also it's something that we inherit as human beings. We want to create. We want to discover more things, create a better society. We want to have new and better conversations with people. We're always doing this, right? I want to bake a better cake than I baked last time, right? There's something there, and a heart to discover and to find things that can benefit humankind. So heart is the source of meaning, and it's very much the core of human nature as well as God's nature. And already I indicated this kind of pair system. The philosophical aspect of unification principles calls this pair system subject and object pairing, this kind of complementary relationship between subject and object pairs, like internal character and external form, or masculinity and femininity, although those two are very dynamic, Any one can be the subject at any time, right? So the subject has the nature in the moment of initiating, and the object has the nature in that moment of reciprocating that or responding to that. So this is the nature of relationship, isn't it? You can't have two people talking at the same time. So people have to learn how to talk well and have to learn how to listen well, right? So it's very important. There are two aspects. The listening is the more object side. The talking is the more subject side. And for any meaningful conversation, that has to swap around, doesn't it, right? You can't have one person talking all the time. So And I sometimes say, have you ever had the experience of talking with somebody, and after a while, you just get a feeling they're not actually listening to what I'm saying? Or is that only me that's had that experience, right? And then, because you say something and then they say something, but they're just continuing from what they said before. But actually, these two should develop the idea. So at the end of a really good conversation, you should both look at each other and say, where did those ideas come from? That's wonderful, right? Was it from you? No, I thought it was from you, right? These ideas come because you're having a good kind of exchange based on these principles we call give and receive relationships. So this is very important, right? And I don't think of these things as religious doctrine. Do you? Doesn't sound like that. It's very fundamental. It's about life itself. So, in the human being, the individual, mind is subject, body is object. There's that kind of relationship and should be. There's husband-wife relationship, which, as I said, is dynamic. So don't read it just in a two-dimensional way. Through give and receive or give and take action come all the forces, all the energies that are necessary for existing, for multiplying, and for acting. Wow, life is like that. And life, at the moment, cannot be explained even by the top scientists, right? What is this thing called life? Life has this, desire to move forward and to progress and become more complex. Where's that coming from? Eventually, science has to come into the area of religion and say there must be this purposeful mind and heart behind everything, which is providing the energy for this. So I believe everything will come to a unified view in the end. So in nature, in God, all pairs relate centering on a common purpose. They find that common purpose in their reason for existing, and that comes from the Creator. So within God are all these subject-object pairs harmonized and unified, but when God creates and it's manifested in this world, it takes the form of distinct subject-object pairs, like mind and body or man and woman. Are you with me? So there's always this paired relationship, and we need to kind of rediscover this and reevaluate this and see how beautiful this system is and how universal this system is. So God's energy in everything, which I've represented by those little white arrows, causes a subject-object to come into some kind of relationship. It drives that relationship. It moves all dual characteristics to form a common base for their mutual relationships. It encourages unity to create something greater, and it's the foundation for God's eternal existence. Wow. So relationships in this way are very key. And if there's any way of describing Father Moon's theology, I would say it's a relational theology. It's all to do with relationships, including the fundamental one between God and human beings. So where there's harmonious interaction between these subject-object pairs, we see the emergence of love, of truth, of beauty, of goodness. This is where it comes from in our world. And this is how we can, by doing this right, centering on a common purpose, we can produce things of value. So God is a God of heart, remember that definition? Is investing love into human beings. What is the response to love? It's to love back, isn't it? Right? If you feel genuine, pure love, that you feel, I don't deserve this, naturally you want to return it back. We call this kind of return of love in this case beauty. Maybe it's a philosophical choice of word, right? But so the response to love is to give beauty. So any husbands in the room today? Right, husbands, if you've worked this out for yourself, I'm sure, that if you love your wife more, she becomes more beautiful. Did you notice that?
Yes.
And yeah, absolutely. So this is a response, and it's mutual, I'm sure. Okay. All right. She didn't appreciate that love you were giving. So what is the response for human beings to God's love? Is actually such things as humility. it's honesty, it's trustworthiness, you could say, it's faithfulness. It's these kind of qualities, like loyalty as well, which we see passed on down through the world's religious traditions. And especially the time-old kind of proven medium for that is stories, through stories in the great textbooks of religion, the Holy Scriptures. These stories are all about loyalty, faithfulness, trustworthiness, honesty, humility, and more, right? So that we can learn what it is to live a life that returns something to God in beauty for what we've received in terms of love. And the result is joy. That exchange brings joy to both partners. So we live in a world of complementary pairs. So these are just some of them, you know. Everybody loves it when in the ballet, the prima donna and the main male dancer dance together, right? It gets the most applause because it's that interaction which is just so stunning. And yet they each have their own role, right? So, I mean, you don't often see the woman lifting the man up above her head and, you know, twirling round. But sometimes the husband, who in that case, the husband, no, it could be, but the male dancer is maybe dressed in black. So it's like, you know, I'm not so important in this, right? But yet he's also the subject and enables the female dancer to almost float across the room, right? Across the stage as he's carrying her, you know? And everybody's thinking, ooh, she's flying, she's flying. We know she's not really flying, but it just creates a magic, right? And it's a kind of something we can relate to because we know there is this magic available, right, to us in the complementary pairing of male and female. And we see it in the animal world, in the plant world, and even, we're going to have thunderstorms later today, right? So that's the kind of clash of plus and minus, these two complementary aspects. And, you know, yeah, that can be used as an analogy for love between husband and wife, right? So there's a foundation here for lasting peace and happiness, which is coming out of this explanation. So when our mind and body are centered on God and find their common purpose in God, that is where, through that good, harmonious relationship, we can become a person of integrity, a good person. And, you know, we need to center on some higher values or higher purpose. And I say that to people who maybe are not comfortable with the concept of God. That's fine, you know. Think about centering on a higher purpose and something of higher value that's common to all. And this will bring the same result. So when there's mind-body unity, we have a person of integrity. That means their words associated with the mind match their deeds, which are associated with the body. So they're working together in a really good, harmonious way. And I think it's fairly universal that we appreciate a person of integrity, right? But when a person's words and deeds don't match, they soon lose our kind of admiration, right? We don't have time for such a person. So it's very universal what we're talking about here. And in this system, the individual, in growing from a baby to adulthood, is growing in character, is maturing in heart. This aspect of love is being developed. We're learning to unite mind and body and have them work in the right relationship and order of priorities. It's a time to develop our spiritual sensitivity that this person can become a dwelling place of God, and the love of God can be at the heart of that person. So they're able to give and receive true, genuine, altruistic love. How does that sound? This is the goal for the individual. You will find that religious traditions of the world all kind of feed into this in their best. You know, where they're at their best, they're encouraging people to live this kind of life. And as I said, you know, we look to find people of integrity. There are three, extraordinary human beings here. None of them is without their flaws, right? We have to say. But their contribution is also recognized as being very, very significant, becoming a responsible individual with integrity and developing a heart of love toward others. That means I'm now an individual who can contribute to the building of a peaceful, ideal world. You know, I'm a positive presence in the world, if you like, such as these figures that we see, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, this kind of thing. So, but, you know, none of these people, in a way, is any different to you or I in some respects, right? So when I was teaching as a secondary school religious education teacher, we were asked to, you know, focus on these individuals, and also Nelson Mandela was maybe the fourth one, and then the list dried up somehow. Like, who else is there? Rather sad to see, but I'm sure there are many, many wonderful people in history. But that was the kind of thing. And yet, you know, everybody is open to making that kind of contribution in their life. It doesn't have to be so noisy and public as these, but it still can be in quality the same. Then the second kind of aspect or foundation for peace in society is, you know, for husband and wife to unite together. So when a man has kind of gone through that process of individual development and mind-body unity, they can find and naturally want to find a person they can settle down with and make a family with. This is a natural human desire. Same for a woman who's matured in love and heart, and somehow then it's not feeling enough. I want to find somebody. Of course, not everybody feels that or can do that successfully. This is why I'm talking about ideal, right? That's the reason for my caveat. So I know not everybody's life works out like this, but let's think generally, you know, for human beings. This is our aspiration, that this should work well, and then, you know, through the love between husband and wife, centered on a common purpose, then they can raise a family and, you know, pass on that tradition of love. Ideally, children should see in their parents the nature of God. And they don't have to go a kind of philosophical route or some other route to try and understand who God is. They would see it in the love and feel it in the love that they receive from their parents. And this understanding is saying that this is the key building block for an ideal world. Out of this family comes the kind of unit which can expand then to a wider family, society, nation, world. So we should be, from the beginning, one world family and really live like that. But we've lost it, tragically, right? We become very divided and very opposed against each other. So that is the tragic history of humankind. So again, centering on higher values and a higher purpose, the family can become a building block. Now, any being is interdependent, can't exist just by itself. And a family is where this is most kind of evident and played out to its fullest. We're created to exist through reciprocal relationships, and it's in the family that we learn many important aspects of love. When I'm referring to love here, or true love, this isn't a simple kind of fairy tale romantic idea. It's something, I explain it here. This is using from an American psychologist Greg Bear's definition. True, genuine love. It's unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person. That's the kind of thing you can memorize, isn't it, right? Unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person. Wow. True, genuine love. So there's love and there's love, right? So this is talking about true love or genuine love. He uses a phrase, real love. But where do we learn this true love, this quality of love? First from our parents. They're our first teachers. So the family is the school of love. It's where our nature, our heart and character are nurtured. And it's a primary, if you like, training ground for relationships, right? This is where we learn them all. We go through some mistakes and we have to learn the hard way, but there's always a loving and caring parent around to help us through this kind of process. So it's growing in love, which is a complex thing to do as a human being, right? And we also learn that in relating to brothers and sisters, to parents, to grandparents. And the family then is the school of morality and ethics. It's the basis of societal norms and proper conduct in a wider world. So when you're mature enough and you can start to venture out into the wider world, you're going to take what you learned in the family with you and apply that to your wider circle of brothers and sisters. Or every elderly person is like your grandmother or your grandfather, and you treat them the same way. This is why family actually can be such an important place of learning, of development. And if we jettison the family in our society, we lose it at great peril, right? Because we are not acknowledging this most important school of love. Also, we learn true love as husband and wife, where we see God in our partner. And the partner to us is like an image of the Creator, living for each other and the family and the wider world. This is also making us a wonderful model of true love to children, that they see and experience as an example, not just as a theory. So a strong family has a focus that's higher than itself. Are you with me? And it should do. So it's not just for the family's sake, it's there to go beyond that and take these ideals out into the world. So we experience, very special and unique aspects of love in such a family, if we have that blessing and that opportunity. Child's love, siblings' love, spouses' love, parents' love. When we get to the point of experiencing parents' love, we're starting for the first time to feel what is God's love for us. This is the same kind of quality of love, unconditional, true love. And therefore, it kind of rounds us out as human beings in God's image. And each of these is different in quality, right? And has a different kind of nature or aspect of love. Here is Father Moon speaking. Again, he said, in the family, there are 4 levels: grandfather and grandmother, father and mother, you and your spouse, your sons and your daughters, and the world is the extension of these relationships. Thus, you need to love the people of the world whose ages are similar to the people in your family in the same way that you love your family members. Right? So learn the love in the family and then apply that to the wider society. This is called the principle of living for others, or sometimes for the sake of others. It's living for others. Do we see that kind of coming through in world scripture? The holy books? Yes, we do. Here's Luke 17 in the New Testament. Whoever seeks to gain his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life, not hanging on in a self-centered way to your life, whoever loses it will preserve it. It's an interesting kind of almost paradox. And you get in Buddhism, have compassion for all beings, rich and poor alike. Each has their suffering, big theme in Buddhism. Some suffer too much, others too little. Teach this triple truth to all: a generous heart, kind speech, and a life of service and compassion are the things which renew humanity. Wow, that's another one I would carry with me in my wallet, right? And look from time to time. Such a universal truth. Or in the Holy Quran, do not expect in giving any increase for yourself. Although interestingly, true love is the only thing that when given actually gives back more than you gave. It's curious, right? So that's God's design. Here in the Bhagavad Gita, in Hinduism, of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed by those who desire no reward is the nature of goodness. Or anybody here with a Sikh background? What is the love? What is that love which is based on greed? Where there is greed, the love is false. It's not true love, right? So those are 2 foundations for lasting peace, for the individual, for the family. The third is ourselves in relation to the wider world or the whole environment. We can say the natural world. So again, centered on the kind of original purpose which comes from the Creator. We need a good, healthy relationship with this wider world, and then we can have harmony between human beings and the world around us. So again, centering on a higher purpose or higher values, then we can become people of true ownership, of responsible stewardship. We're just waking up to this nowadays. It should have been long ago we woke up to this, but it's becoming a necessity. We need dominion through love, caring for the environment, so that there's material prosperity for all. It's a mutual benefit, and science and technology also can benefit all human beings, and the natural world as well will not suffer unduly. So true ownership, responsible stewardship, this is what we need to encourage. And, we can say, as Father Moon says here, it's my last kind of longish quotation, I hope you bear with me. He said, "We are born for the sake of love, live for the sake of love, and finally die for the sake of love." Not only people, but all beings desire true love. This is why human beings, as the highest beings in creation, should embrace and love the masterpieces of God's creation and teach creation how to love. All creation is longing to receive and experience God's love through men and women who have become one with God at the pinnacle of true love. And it's a shame that we've not realized this degree of love up until now. Right? So relating everything back to love. This is very fundamental in Father Moon's teaching. If we go back 2,000 years, we had the person of St. Paul in his letter to the Romans saying the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. Which is very perceptive, isn't it? Especially for 2,000 years ago in the Roman Empire, right? He's saying the creation is groaning in travail. It's waiting for people of integrity to be born, right? And to practice and to live true love, essentially. And then, creation will be free. It's done nothing wrong, but it's not able to enjoy a proper relationship and be valued and loved as it should. So when we put these together, and this is my final point, when you put these together, you see three foundations of peace, as we call them, in UPF. But you may see the kind of echoes of this in fundamental religious teaching elsewhere. As I said, truth is not new. Religious truth is not new. But the expression of it is new and needs to be updated for every generation, really. But if you go back to even Genesis, is mentioned a few times to key figures, the first ancestors, named Adam and Eve, also to Abraham, to others, to Noah. Three great blessings from God. Be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion over the earth. In a sense, you can see the similarity, can't you, with this? The first is to be fruitful as an individual. Then it's to multiply, although multiply is a rather crude word, just to say. Go and multiply, right? Oh dear, how are you going to, and have dominion? Yes, but what kind of dominion, What is that? It has to be centered on love. So I include this to show that these ideas have very deep and profound roots, and it comes out of Father Moon's own revelation that he received and his insight and prayer over Holy Scripture to get to the essence of what life is about and then share it with us for our peace-building and peacemaking efforts. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you.